Well, hello, welcome back to another episode of The Priest and the Futurist, a conversation to create the future. And today I'm with my good friend Mark Appleyard. My name is Arjan Visser, and this is actually episode 23 of season 2.
23. There
We are
you go.
still counting.
Ooh,
And
we've been at this a while.
yeah, I know. And it's the second season. So what for those that watch live, please engage using the chat. For those who watch the replay or hear the podcast, please leave your comments, ask your questions, because it's all about starting a conversation to create the future. And today we want to talk about actually it's the first episode we're going to talk about RISK. Risk,
Mm,
some call it risk, but we call it RISK. And we want to talk about the R of recognizing the emerging future. And in the
mm,
coming months, we're going to talk about the I of identifying, the S of stratifying, and the K of keeping alive that demonstrated new reality. But it
mhm.
all starts with recognizing the emerging future. So,
Amen.
Mark, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say recognizing the emerging future?
Well, I think the irony is the day or how that RISK came to me is and it speaks to how to recognize an emerging future. I was speaking at a conference in Amsterdam, and the evening before my first session was to happen, I've gone to bed and getting ready to prepare myself for bed, and people have paid good money to come and hear us speak and everything. And I've done a lot of preparation in lead up to the event, and I'm confident in what I've got to say. And I think it was actually as I was brushing my teeth, as clear as I've heard the Lord speak, he says, "Mark, do you trust me?" And whenever he says that, because that's not the first time he says it, I know I'm being invited into a different reality than the one I perceive that I'm about to step into. And I said, "Well, yes, I trust you." And he said, "I want you to put down the message you've prepared. That's not what you're going to speak." Well, the usual backing and forth of dialogue, well, but surely, but no, but surely, and what then, and all of that. And he said, "Just trust me, go to sleep." So I've gone to sleep or sleep that night, not having a clue what I'm about to speak on the following morning. With all of my preparation literally being put on the back burner, but that the Lord would speak. Well, about 3 a.m., he woke me, and I had a napkin from a drink sitting by my bed, and I pulled it out, and the Lord gave me RISK, which became the foundation stone teaching that we're going to get to unpack a little bit of here in this, as you've got your revelation on it, and as the Lord sort of harmonized these two beautiful revelations into something I believe is quite powerful. That from my end, at least, the poetic way I received it is I had to step in order to receive it, because the future I thought was my preferred one was not the one that the Lord had for me, and that I needed to recognize a preferred future that he had. But in order to do that, I had to come into alignment with him. And I think for me, that's the key to the R. From the spiritual standpoint, is being able to listen to his voice and come into alignment with him.
Yeah, definitely. It's good actually to reflect back on because that is about nearly 4 years ago. And
Mm,
I was part of that conference as well. I was part of the team organizing it, getting you and Julie over to the Netherlands for the
mm,
conference. And I remember sitting there, probably second row, maybe first row, don't know. Actually, it was one of those two. And you started to draw it, and it was in my mind. It was like I've been involved in business strategy, business structures, business architecture by then around 12 years.
mm,
And I thought that's the hype cycle, that's the S curve, that's where it connects to what I now call the inner voice. And it
mm.
was for me like you I probably like those people came, paid good money for the conference, but I love to still believe till today that you actually set that part for me because it just brought so many sides together,
Mm.
and it was not, it didn't end there, it started there. Like you said,
Right.
we started to unpack it,
Yeah.
and I did another future challenge a couple of weeks ago, and again we pushed it to the next level.
Hmm.
But every time it starts with that connecting to your
Hmm.
source of life.
Amen.
You called it the Holy Spirit. I call it personally the Holy Spirit. But in general, I would say, what's your source of life?
Right.
What's
Exactly.
the place where your inner voice got fed by new insight, crazy thoughts
Hmm.
that you can only actually respond to? I have to jump in both feet.
Yeah.
And but that's where it starts. And it always comes back to that you get overwhelmed by crazy thoughts, weird impressions,
Hmm.
drawings that make no sense in the moment, and you just start chasing it, I would say.
I agree. I look still at the 35,000 foot view as to why. Why anything? Again, from the spiritual point of view, why anything? Why would God even bother to speak to Mark at all, let alone in a hotel room in, oh, I don't think we're in Amsterdam. We were out of the city a little bit, I think, where we were staying. But either way, in a small hotel room, why would God speak? And all of that, what then? Why, when he spoke, did he give me that? They're reasonable questions that a rational mind wants to get some answers to.
I
And
know the answers. It was
yeah,
for me.
that's right. It was. It was. But do you know what? There might have been even a higher level answer than that. And that is that it was an invitation to deeper intimacy for me.
Yes.
This was the vehicle he was using so that I could connect to, as you so eloquently say, my source at a whole new level.
Yeah.
It could have been anything, but that in that moment was the very best invitation that he knew that would activate that in me and the desire to go deeper still. That was the why. And again, when we look at the R, to get an accurate picture of the R means to go into deeper places still, that there is an invitation to step in even further again.
Yeah. Well, it is. I like that word, intimacy. Some people say it's into me, you see, where it comes from. And in a way, I think like it is an invitation to see deeper into the future,
Hmm.
because time is the only constant, and it's always changing. So like when you connect to your source of life, when you start to get your own spirit be, I would say, like elevated, excited about new things, you start to develop hope for and start to believe in without having ever seen it before.
Hmm.
It is always about the future picture. It's always about a future quo. So
Right.
different, not an update of your status quo,
Mm-hmm.
because that would mean I could do it myself. And
Mm-hmm.
and to unpack that one, we tend to say think out of the box, but we actually have a hard time to do that on our own,
Mm-hmm.
because our mental system works that we always take the next thought. But sometimes it's really like that we are disruptive and are not looking for a better version of what we have, but the next version. And that's where this comes into play. When you recognize a next version
Mm-hmm.
based on mental images, or, and that sounds maybe a bit fluffy, but imagination, the
Yeah.
eyes of our heart,
Yeah.
it's something to unpack.
Yeah, I would think again as I think through that, you're right on it. It's a a version of reality that we're invited to step into that we don't fully perceive yet. And I would argue that from a spiritual perspective, if that reality does not reveal in some part a new expression of how, and I speak to myself now, of how Mark loves, then Mark has to question, is that truly a reality that God is inviting him into? Because it has to be a greater expansion of how I love him, how I love me, so that how I can love others increases and impacts as well. So I have to look at it and go, yes, there's tasks, yes, there's new things, there's new opportunities. But if that does not include in that box as it's pressed and it's made wider, a revelation of how I can love even better God, Mark, others, then I've got to question, am I really tuning in to the source? Because it should include something around that as well.
Yeah, and for me, when you say love, I also think like, and I don't do justice to the word love, but I think love is such a big word, and it could be like a diamond with the most facets ever. And the first facet I think of when I hear the word love in this context, I would say, if it doesn't extend my influence, my leverage of the freedom I have in adding totally new value to others,
Yes, exactly.
then what am I doing? Like,
And I think you've nailed it right there. That's a very accurate definition of love, is adding value to others, because the true value is the image of God. And so when we can do something that takes away the elements that have got in the way of that, we've added value by bringing an opportunity for greater expression of his image in them.
yeah,
I love that. I think you're right onto something there.
yeah, and which makes me think of like we talked about spiritual, and we talked about the source of our life, which means that we are spirit. So it is in that connection between us and our source of life.
Yes.
For you, Mark, for me, it's the Holy Spirit. So it's a spirit-spirit connection, which means that it should unlock, increase, mature our spiritual abilities. And or some call it the gift of the Spirit, but I want to actually call it our spiritual abilities.
Yeah.
Because when our spiritual abilities are unlocked and grow, become more mature, got upgraded, then actually that will overflow in what we're going to talk definitely about in the next couple of weeks when we talk about risk.
Yeah.
But it's this ability for me to start using my foresight, my gift of increasing perspective, my ability to bring groundbreaking solutions. And maybe you think, what do you talk about? Gifts of the Spirit. Well, groundbreaking solutions, healing, bring healing to a situation, fix the system,
Yes.
fix the inability, and gifts of perspective. Well, you have the gift of faith, and faith looks like something. It creates this image of hope, not just for you, but when it overflows for others.
Yeah.
So that is this natural, actually, it's a natural reaction of our spirit when it increases. Like I would nearly say when the water starts to flow, like the source is a river, a source.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's some good stuff. And I would also posit that one of the ways that we can see that when we are walking in that is that whether it be a system that we've seen healing come to, a process that we've seen healing come to, whether it's a person who's been healed in the context, whatever it might be, that people that come into contact with that emergence of the preferred future, they become more dignified. I think there's a word that is lacking in our social vocabulary. I don't care whether it be spiritual, business, social, whatever. If there is a word that is underused almost more than any other word, it's the word dignity and dignify. And I think when people come into a relationship or contact with that which we are walking out as this preferred future, and we've recognized that we're getting ready, and again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but one of the evidences, I believe, is that there's a dignifying, a rehumanizing. That's how I define dignity. It's rehumanizing. There's a rehumanizing element to the people that come into contact with it.
I love that word. When you say dignity, dignify, I immediately think of confrontation. And maybe it sounds weird, but I think
No.
a confrontation is what, in the context of relationship, is what keeps us moving forward.
Mhm.
And a lot of people confuse confrontation with conflict. I
Mhm.
personally believe to prevent the conflict, you need to confront,
Right.
which it really means you
Mhm.
talk in dignity to each other, to our peers,
Mhm.
to make sure that they get back on track.
Yes.
So when we confront someone's behavior, it is to get that person back on track, not
Mhm.
to comply to my perspective, but
Oh.
to their perspective. So when I do that to the recognizing the emerging future,
Mm.
it is that my worldview, my current perspective of what I think this is my current reality, my status quo,
Mhm.
is completely disruptive. So it is
Mhm.
that encounter where my worldview is like coming from left field. There's a new view. And the only thing I could say is like, can I breathe again? You know,
Mm.
it just takes my breath. And
Yeah.
in that confrontation of my worldview is not the only one, there is another view, comes
Mm.
this invitation to experience something new.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. You cannot have a conversation around dignity without a conversation around confrontation. Those two things are in an inseparable relationship. And for me, why that is the case is because dignity is protecting who you are. So I will disrupt, I will confront, I will do whatever it takes to protect who you are. And if that means helping you to discard some things that are getting in the way of you, I remember Julie used to have some sayings here when the kids were growing up, and I remember many times over she would say to them, someone's getting in the way of my magnificent, remarkable son or daughter. In other words, they were getting in the way of themselves.
Yeah.
Someone's getting in the way of that today. Let's have a conversation around that. Otherwise, she was confrontational without conflict. But you're getting in the way of the best version of yourself right now. Let's look at what that could mean. Some changes would probably help.
Well, actually, you could say we always live in this free version tension of ourselves. There is the past version that's mainly based on what we have been doing. And actually, most people you ask, who are you? Describe what they do. So I
Mm-hmm.
could call that
Right.
my past identity.
Yeah.
It's my present identity. It's really like the sum of all things I believe about who I am today.
Mm.
But the most interesting one is my future identity. Who can I become?
Mm.
What isn't it exciting to think of all the elements I have gathered over the years, all the skills, abilities, experiences, they will be taken apart from the format, the context that I've learned them, and will placed in a new format called my future identity, in my future, preferred future. You mentioned it already.
Mm.
And everything starts to work together
Mm.
for the good. And then I would say not just good as good, better, best, but I'm saying I think it's Bill Johnson that always jokes like the gooder version. And because there is nothing beyond good.
Mm.
And in that setting of who I can become lays the focus, the excitement, the acceleration.
Mm.
And so that's why I would say recognizing the emerging future is the big invitation of the future to
Yeah.
invite you into something new.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. No, I agree, and I think the ability to recognize is again, it's and I love your language around that future quo, the movement out of where we are into something that is beyond. It takes the eyes lifting out of the immediate to set them up on the horizon to see ahead, and otherwise, yeah, there's no change that we can walk into. Change will happen around us and will happen to us. But if we want to be again the leaders, the initiators of the change, then we don't have the luxury of staring at our toes. We actually have to lift up our head and look past our nose to the future that's sitting in front of us, and that takes courage.
It does. And we tend to talk about in our organizations as we have those who have the vision and those who start to understand the vision. And sometimes we use one of the, call it the middle layers in the structures. We call them the vision casters. But I personally believe those who are out there leading their own lives, own their own life, be responsible for leading people. Could be just your kids in the natural, or the followers, or the people that work with you or for you. Then it is your sole responsibility to keep having a clear perspective of where you want to go.
Yeah.
If you lose the perspective of where you want to go, first mistake you will make is try to protect what you have. Second mistake, you want to control everything and everyone around you to not bypass you.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. We don't want that as individuals. And maybe I'm speaking beyond my reach, but speaking for you as well. But that's not what you want. That's not how you want to be treated by anyone else. You don't want to be put under a lid.
No. I remember some years ago, and the Lord gave me, again, the conversations around trust. And one of those things was about, again, stepping into a future that he was inviting me into. And there's a lot of story I won't go into today around that. But the picture that I got was the picture of climbing one of those ropes on the old school gymnasium. And the picture being is that, as you climb and you climb and you climb and you climb, the principle being you can only climb as high as your bottom hand will let you go. And so therefore, there's got to be that point where you let go of the bottom hand and take a hold of here. But guess what? Yesterday's top hand is today's bottom hand.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to keep climbing, I got to let go of something else here in order to. But guess what? Now that one is also, and so on and so forth. What I'm continuing to learn is that now I'm spending more time with just one hand on the rope. I actually don't get a lot of luxury of time to sit there with both hands on the rope, because I'm constantly invited in. I'm constantly recognizing the future that I'm being called to step into. But if I am to recognize, I can't recognize unless I'm willing to let go. Otherwise, I'll just be frustrated, and it's safer to stay looking at my toes at that point.
Yeah, willing to let go. I think of for instance, let go things of the past that you're very proud of, that you maybe got a reward for, you got all the credits for, but it's not a step of the now or the immediate future. Let it go is not the same thing as throwing it away, but just letting it go, which means there is the ability that the framing disappears and the core skill remains and will have in the future a total new place as a building block. But by letting go, you create space.
Beautiful.
And if you create, I know from my own, like if something really new is getting to the horizon, there's a step before that really presents it, and that's actually I need to create space. Mental space, physical space. It starts with letting go different thoughts, maybe even beliefs. It means creating space. So in my agenda, it's like all those things. It's not that, I can keep doing this till the new thing starts to emerge. I know that I will miss the new thing because I'm occupied with the old thing. So actually, in the challenge, I said, most risk of my day is that I'm finishing work from yesterday, which actually means I look backwards to the future. And the future will hit me, will go by me, and I'll just say, oh, that's amazing. Oh, that's ugly. But what if I do 180 degree and I start looking face forward and moving towards the future? Then I will not be surprised, but I can anticipate and make my choices before it arrives.
Yeah, and we're looking at that right here. I mean, the home of Anathan Global Studios here in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. The Lord back in, April, said effectively, time to start stepping into and believing for. And as you know, this was just a shell That's all it was, unfinished space. And then the Lord said, now I want you to start, praying into, believing for, and whatever. And so we moved towards that, all the while thinking, but hang on, that means I've got to let go of this. And I have this many times that I set aside for coaching calls, and this much for this and that much for that. And the Lord goes, I actually want you to trim some of that down. But you don't understand, Lord. No, what was it? I got to let go of that bottom hand again. Now I still have some times open, but I'm just becoming much more, hey, this is the time right here that I'm available, because more and more. And interestingly enough, I haven't even launched Anathan Media yet, and several local businesses and companies around here have already said, hey, we want to come and record in your space or have a look at your space or whatever it might be, which I find fascinating. What did we do? We created did all the work to create the space, but I had to make space to create the space. And then now we can step into something that is an emerging future that I don't know how long it's for. It may be the rest of my life. It may not be. I don't know. All I know is that's what I'm told to hold on to right now.
And I know many clients, business leaders, they say, yeah, but I'm much more pragmatic, which actually means that I do what's at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not looking much further ahead.
Yeah.
Which I always say could be good, like without adding judgment. But the only thing is, I would always advise them to say, but like, where are you positioning yourself? Because you will always be busy. If you want to switch from doing the good things to the right things, not to confuse with stop doing wrong things and replace them for good things.
Sure.
Because when we are called to do good, it's about doing righteous things, the right things. It's not doing just good, because then you will be occupied for the rest of your life, but will not have this fulfillment that you did what you came for.
Yeah.
And in that search, you can be pragmatic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you don't look further in your vision and your mindset weeks from here.
Mm-hmm.
You could have foresight, so you look years ahead. You could be a seer. You look like decades ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone needs all the others, but you need to see. You need to get into a creative, mental free zone space where you can let your eyes of your heart see something.
Yeah.
And that gives focus, that gives clarity, that gives fun, excitement, but also the uncomfortable and the inconvenient.
Yeah.
Because it will lead you to take steps.
It will.
So you're not sitting on a comfortable couch then anymore.
That's right. I purpose to put myself in places that cause me to confront hard reality. One of the things that I do, and you and I have shared this before, but several times throughout any given year, I'll have a few minutes on my hand while I'm driving, and we'll, just by nature of where I am, we'll be driving past the cemetery. And so, most people just keep driving and go to the next coffee shop. Not this weird creature right here. Usually a few times a year, I'll pull the car over and get out and just take 5, 10, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever, and go walking through the cemetery. I don't know anyone who's in there, especially here in America. I don't know anybody who's in the cemeteries. But why do I do that? A very peculiar thing to do. I do that and I look along and I read all the different quotes. I read all the different things. But in my mind, I'm sitting there going, first of all, life is really short. It's a very, very stark reality that you're confronted with when you're standing by yourself in a cemetery. You're reminded life is extremely short and it's fragile. It's very, very fragile, especially when you look at the different ages. And so many, the older I get, the more of them that are in there that are younger than me that are there. And it's like, wow, that's confronting as well. But I asked myself the question, what things would these people ask me if they were on my side of the grass, knowing what they know now? And it's a really great exercise to go through. And so often I keep hearing to myself, just get on and live your best version of you. Take a hold of those dreams. Go after them. You get one run at this mountain. Let go of what you got to let go of to take hold of what you've got to take hold of. And it's just, for me, doing that a few times a year helps me to strip away the things that just don't matter. Enables the process of letting go to be a little bit easier as well, because I have a brand new perspective based on where I've purposed to immerse myself for a few moments.
I'm just throwing it out, Mark. That's weird, but
Yes,
we
it
love
is.
you. No, just saying, like, maybe it sounds weird. Well, maybe any word just during the last half hour we said was sounded weird, sounded like maybe even offensive or a confrontation. Then I'm just saying that's the invitation of the future.
Yeah.
The moment you get offended, the moment you get frustrated or you don't agree, that's where the shaking starts.
Mm.
So I'm not saying let go your position, adopt to the other. No, just take the invitation,
Yeah.
because there is where two things intersect, and that's where something new can grow. It could
That's
be
right.
reflection, it could be an innovative idea, it could unlock the next version of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because the best version could be to your own ability, which is that's already a mental blockage.
Yeah.
So the next version is like, where is the more potential of it? So when someone says something, and I know, Mark, you have been an amazing coach in situations where I got like really confronted with behavior of myself, and I thought, I don't like this behavior. And I know you said, but that's an invitation. But because without the setting, you would not react, you would not find out. So
Mm.
you would not have the option to learn and find out what the better version of it is.
Right.
And
Exactly right.
so if any word is, I would nearly say, if you're not offended, listen to it again, because those are just the small gemstones of the future that contain an invitation. Could be small, could be mega.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, and I think that's a good place for us to land on today. But it's yeah, don't be afraid to be offended. I think that is a good word, and offended with your own presuppositions. I'm not talking about causing offence unnecessarily and being a pain in the derriere. I mean, just that sense of the shifting resonance within inside of you, so that you vibrate out of where you are into where you're being invited into. And that takes resonance, that takes a new frequency to emerge. And that those frequencies, and again, I come from an electrical electronics background, they offend each other if they hit each other in the wrong kind of way. Well, in what we're talking about, that's actually a very healthy thing. Because in that, as they bounce off each other, it causes one to move and shift, and it'll cause a change. So don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it at all. As I say, I purpose to put myself in environments that do that to me, that shake me out, that gets me to vibrate at a slightly different frequency to keep me moving forward.
Yeah, it's good to set yourself up
Mhm.
for this invitation of the future.
Yeah,
This
I'd rather be proactive about it than have it happen to me.
Yeah, and probably we need both.
Mhm.
For a simple reason. Sometimes we just got stuck in a mental funnel,
Yeah.
and then we go, if we're not carefully, we go up but also down. And
Mhm.
so we need this disruption, this
Yeah.
shaken. And that's why I believe we need to be really, it needs to come from the inside out,
Mhm.
or it comes from the peers, and then it's confirmed from the inside out.
Yeah.
So I'm really really keen on saying this. Like, if there's any disruption, any shaking in your life that is not confirmed from the inside, that it's good, although not comfortable and very painful, shift your setting as well,
Mm.
because then you probably need to find a place where you celebrate it.
Yeah.
But when you have the confirmation from the inside, the very painful acknowledgement that yes, it's very painful, but you need it, just try it, just test it, then I would definitely say Go after it, but not alone. Surround yourself with peers that
Right.
understand this,
Hmm.
want to understand you, want to celebrate you, want to support you, but also inspire you
Hmm.
to get running after what's yours.
Hmm.
And so the ticker is going around on the bottom of the screen. You are invited to just test out the mastermind group, which is what the name we call our peer-to-peer community, with owner managers, innovators, creatives that want to go to the next version of themselves. So you're invited. Just join it. Follow the link, businessrevivalists.com/mastermind, and just make use of the option to join as a guest in 1 or 2 or 3 sessions before you make yourself accountable to any personal development rhythm.
Hmm.
Test it out, find it out, because I believe that if this peer-to-peer mastermind is not yours, you at least know that you have to find your peer-to-peer group, your
That's
peers,
right.
to
It's good stuff, my friend. Make sure you do that, people. It's good. The feedback's been amazing. And yeah, jump in and have some fun with these guys. Learn, be wrestled with, and do some wrestling of your own as well. You'll be very glad you did join that mastermind session. Also, don't forget you can get a hold of content that we've created as well here on the U Church app. That's one word, YOU Church. You can get it wherever you get your apps, and you can reach out to us at info@anathan.co. That's INFO, info at anathan.co. We still have some coaching available spots open and available, not many. I'm trying not to load them up too much, but if there's people that are, genuinely hungry, wanting to go after the things of God, then we'd love to have a conversation with you and to see if it's a good fit as well. But my dear friend, it is always a pleasure.
and I really want to recommend connect to Mark and make use of this, and then I would say connect to me as well. Then you will have two not competing but confronting perspectives
Yes,
to
indeed.
really move you forward. So reach out. Don't stay out there with your questions, comments, objections. If you don't agree, reach out as well, because
Yes,
it's all about creating another conversation verbally, but also in our mindset to create the future we all deserve.
that's
But
right. Exactly.
Mark, from my side, thank you for your time. It was I really enjoyed it. It was a real pleasure to talk about the R of RISK. So next time we'll talk about the I.
Can't wait. I
And
cannot wait.
so take care and see you
Thanks.
soon.
Okay.
Bye.
God bless, guys.